This is the end of the beginning. Welcome to today's show. You will own nothing and be happy. Well, you'll own nothing and you'll be miserable, but they want you to think you'll be happy. And stories like this are going to continue to come out because communism and Marxism, which for those of you out there who are younger and don't understand this stuff and it sounds boring and you hear these terms in school or on History Channel, and it's like, whatever. That's what's happening right now in our society. They're pushing communism and Marxism. And what it is one and the same. But in communism, in Marxism, there is no private property ownership. So anybody out there, if you own a car, you no longer own a car. You own a home, you no longer own a home. In fact, if you try to take claim to something that's yours, like this story I'm about to show you, you'll be arrested for it. So when a guy who owns a property goes to check on his property and finds squatters in his home doing drugs and all sorts of illegal activity, what do the police do? Well, they arrest the man who owns the property, of course, for not agreeing or complying with people breaking into his home and living there and destroying it, right? Because this is a communist Marxist government that's in place. The police are taking orders. The military are taking orders, and all of them are in on it, and that is why you see this chaos continue to ensue. Before I get into this story, which is going to frighten you and you need to share with other people, please make sure you subscribe to my backup channels if you haven't yet. I haven't mentioned it too many times on this channel, but I need to mention it's really important. One more strike, I won't be able to upload for 2 weeks. 2 more strikes, and I will be terminated off the platform. With all the stuff going on in Maui, I highly expect a strike in the future. So please make sure now, Uprising Revival is the first one to subscribe to. That is linked below. Make sure you sub there. I have to build that channel out. And then Eye for an Eye is the second channel. Please do that for me. Do me a favor, pause the video and subscribe now, or do so at the end of the video. I'll remind you again then. So let's take a look at this story, okay? A homeowner arrested after trying to evict squatters from his own property. He walked in on weapons, a prostitute, and a bunch of dogs. And of course, this is normal, right? Could you imagine just coming home from the mall and people are inside your home living there and then you call the police to have them taken out and they arrest you? How dare you interrupt the criminals from living in your home? And God forbid you actually own a weapon and you use the weapon on people who broke into your home. You'll be arrested for using and owning a weapon. That's how insane this is getting. And of course, I've covered this in the last couple of months. Those videos have been removed along with the channel, of course, which is why I emphasize subscribing to the other channels now. But those videos I talked about, these stories you may have heard in the last couple of months about people turning into the wrong driveway, getting out of the car and then getting shot, or somebody knocking on the wrong door, trying to pick up their friends and getting shot. These stories are deeper rooted than just gun control. These are about private property. You don't have a right to bear arms on your private property or protect your private property because you no longer own or have private property. These are all messages and messaging that the New World Order is getting into people's heads. So take a look at this frightening story about a homeowner who goes back to one of his properties to find it overtaken by riffraff.
County man says that squatters broke into his home in February and they're still there. Backlogs with the courts and the marshal's office have left him legally unable to enter his own place. As Channel 2 consumer investigator Justin Gray reports, there's finally an eviction order, but the homeowner is still waiting.
Tim Arcos says just days after his tenant moved out of his Eastlake rental home, he showed up to find someone had broken in. He says as soon as he pulled into the driveway, a gun was pointed at him.
I just jumped the fence and ran. I didn't know what else to do.
That was all the way back in February. 6 months later, the alleged squatters are still living in Arcos' DeKalb County home.
I didn't walk in on a family eating dinner. I walked in on weapons, a prostitute, a bunch of dogs in the back, my fence broken down.
But it was Arco police took into custody that day back in February after he called 911.
And they told the police that I was a home invader and that it was their home. And so I ended up being arrested and detained.
Since then, Arco has been fighting to evict the squatters in court. After months of court delays, the eviction order is finally signed, but now he's waiting on the marshals. John Ernst is Arco's attorney.
No one likes, being in the court system, but it becomes even worse when it seems broken down.
Back in May, we were there as a squatter at another DeKalb County home was evicted and arrested. And that case after a Channel 2 Action News story, the DeKalb sheriff bypassed the courts and served an intruder affidavit after Army Lieutenant Colonel Dalia DeRay's home was taken over by squatters.
I felt violated.
How is that a lie?
That's a lie.
Are you not a squatter? You're the tenant? Do you have a lease?
Yes, I do. That's a lie.
Can you show me the lease?
I don't have to show you that.
One of the alleged squatters at Arco's home yelled at us while we were in front of the home shooting video that he is no squatter. You didn't break into this home?
Oh, no, sir.
Did somebody break into this house?
No, nobody broke in this house.
I feel like it's very heavily weighted towards these were trespassers and criminals, not people that got duped.
That was Justin Gray reporting. Arco was never charged with a crime once he showed police that it was his property, but it's now been 6 months waiting on the courts, and Arco has been told by marshals that he should be able to evict in the beginning of September.
So you can't make this stuff up. I mean, this is what's happening in our society at this point in time. And remember with the old saying, you'll own nothing and be happy. Again, you will own nothing, but you will be miserable. And people out there don't realize it. Now, they tell you you'll own nothing and be happy because this is the Stepford wife treatment that I call it. It's just brainwashing. They're going to convince you when you're miserable. It'll be like somebody punching you in the face and you're smiling going, I like it. Give me another one. This is great. Right? Or somebody tasering you and just being like, yeah, this is wonderful because the government told me to smile and say it's great. Well, that's exactly what you own nothing and be happy means, because of course, even those out there who are liberal or Democrat, whatever you want to call them, they're still going to be, they're like, oh, this is great. This is, oh, we care about all these people and stuff. And then when they realize that they don't own their Xbox anymore, because that's pretty much what most Democrats' top priorities are, video games and other nonsense. But when you don't own your car anymore, or the neighbor wants to share your car or use your car and smashes it into a tree, well, maybe then people will start getting mad. But by that point, it'll be too late. So a homeowner stopped by to check on a suburban Atlanta property only to be arrested for trespassing, because this is normal. Days after the departure of a previous tenant, Tim Arco pulled into the driveway of his house in desirable Decatur, where I'm not sure if I said that right, but where he suddenly encountered a stranger waving a gun in his face. He said, I just jumped the fence and ran. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to walk in on a family eating dinner. I walked in on weapons, a prostitute, a bunch of dogs in the back, my fence broken down. After dialing 911 to report the intrusion, Arco was astonished to find himself being arrested and taken into police custody. I wouldn't be astonished. I'm not astonished, really, when I hear this stuff, because I know the agenda and I know how they've been planning all these other stories out there about not only should people be allowed to squat on your property, people should be allowed, like I've been saying, they should be allowed in your home, in your fridge, in your bedroom. That's what this communist world order looks like. There's no middle class anymore. Everybody's in poverty. And there will be no, it'll be chaos, right? It'll be absolute, utter chaos. People out there think it's great. They're like, this will be great. Well, Democrats think this is great. They're like, this will be cool. We'll give to the people out there who are less privileged. And it's like, well, they're less privileged because they're sitting around doing drugs all day. You want this around your kids? Apparently Democrats do, but the rest of us don't. We don't want this around our children. We don't want this around us in general. Okay, these are people who need help, obviously. Drug addicts need help. They need to be institutionalized in some type of a rehab center, rehabilitized, I should say, right? Rehabilitated. But instead, this is obviously promoted behavior. This is promoted. We see this with all the looting and rioting and all this other stuff. None of these people are getting arrested because they want to destroy all this. How do you destroy it? You let people run amok until they have to change the entire structure of government. Then they come in and then everybody's enslaved. So the people who are running amok now don't realize that they're not going to be running amok sooner or later. But for the time being, they're allowing them to destroy all of our lives. And they're allowing insanity like this to occur. And this isn't the only story about squatters on people's properties. You may have heard other stories out there. There's tons of them of people who own property, who have people breaking into their home, and then they're shooting these people who break in, and they're being arrested and being charged for shooting the person, because apparently that's not allowed. But it's okay for the person to break in. But then I always look at these stories and I'm like, yeah, okay, well, what if the person broke in, right? And you're like, oh, well, he wasn't armed. Okay, and what if you just, you didn't shoot the person, or you remained asleep and they went and they did something to your child or your wife, and then, they left and they're like, well, why didn't the homeowner stop them from doing it? Well, probably because the homeowner was thinking to himself, if I shoot this guy, I'm probably going to go to jail based on that guy's skin color, or based on that guy's sexual preference, or just based on the fact that I own a gun. Because that's what they're doing in today's society. It's pure insanity. So the man goes on to say that they told the police that I was a home invader and that it was their home, and so I ended up being arrested and detained. 6 months later, they're still living in his home. Could you imagine that? We're not talking about the same day. Oh, he went, he tried to throw these people out. He got arrested by accident because the police didn't know whose home it was. So they arrested him. They apologized. They removed the riffraff. 6 months have gone by. And these squatters who are doing drugs and doing illegal activity are still inside of this man's home. I probably would guess that this man's probably going to be on the hook for paying the electric bill for these people too, right? And if he tries to turn the electricity off, he'll be arrested for a hate crime, right? Because that's where we're headed, right? That's how insane all this is. So who would be surprised by that? So 2 people, get this, have died in the residence from overdoses. Code enforcement has even cited Arco for not properly maintaining the house he legally can't access. Oh, see, there you go. There you go. Code enforcement so he's on the hook for not following code while these people are living there. So let me guess, these people are putting holes in the wall, doing all sorts of stuff while they're high on all types of drugs. And since Arco isn't fixing the holes in the wall, well, he's responsible, even though these aren't people paying rent. These are people squatting in his home, right? These aren't people paying rent, ladies and gentlemen. He's not being a landlord. This is just his empty property that has been overtaken by people with problems, people who should be in jail. All right, but remember, the jail cells are for the Christians. The jail cells are for, all people who don't support the communist regime. So after lengthy court delays, an eviction order was finally signed. Arco still awaits marshals, however, to conduct the eviction. So they're going to evict these people. They've given them 6 months of living free on this guy's property. No wonder nobody out there wants to have a job, isn't motivated to get a job, because they know they can just get away with this. Just imagine, though, if they realized they couldn't get away with this and they had to get a job, in order to eat and have water, then people would be more normal and they would work. But instead, the government supports this behavior because they don't want people to work. They want people to be just absolutely insane. They want people to be addicts. They want people to do all this stuff, knowing that they can still get food and water and assistance from the government, and then we're supposed to feel bad for them. Well, maybe one time you feel bad for some of these people. Oh, guy fell in hard times. Maybe his wife or somebody passed away, and he got into a tailspin, and you feel for people, and you got to rehabilitate people. That's understandable. We all have mercy and compassion for other people. This doesn't sound like a mercy, compassion type of story. Guys waving a gun, guys on drugs, guys got prostitutes in the home, guys brought dogs into the home, he smashed the guy's fence. I'm going to pass on the sympathy part for these people. So Arco said he's been informed by marshals that they are hoping for a September eviction. What is the holdup? Evict them now. They're evicting people faster in Maui then they're evicting these people. And I'll get into that in a separate video. So he says no one likes, being in the court system, but it becomes even worse when it seems broken down, said John Ernst, Arco's attorney. Back in May, a similar incident occurred in Atlanta when an Army officer returned to her home to find a squatter living in her sprawling $500,000 residence while she was away on active duty. So there we have an Army officer who's away supposedly defending our country and our way of life, even though, who knows what they're doing now? They're probably all in on plotting all of our demise. They're probably plotting the Maui situation. But the Army officer returned to her home to find that somebody was just squatting in her living room. Lieutenant Colonel Dala Dory told WSB TV that she came home to find a man by the name of Vincent Simon living in her home. Simon, a man who was convicted of guns, drugs, and theft charges, refused to leave the house. The unfortunate discovery was made as Dory's real estate agent began making preparations for the sale of the home. So, no big deal. No big deal. The guy refuses to leave, right? So the police come, what do? Nothing, right? You see some of these, it's unbelievable what's happening. You see some of these, body cam footage. Has anyone out there seen some of this stuff, with the police or any of these, I've mentioned, true crime, I guess stuff like that has it in there too. But where these people resist arrest, they get pulled over, they get told to get out of the car, and they're like, I'm not getting out of the car. And the cops just keep asking him to get out, throw him out of the car. But the police can't even do that. They're afraid to do it because they'll get arrested for assault, right? When these people are just, committing crimes, allowed to commit crimes, and the rest of us don't even have free speech. These people have free drug access, free drug use in public. Look at San Francisco. These people are shooting up in the streets. And the rest of us, we don't even have the freedom to post what we want on social media. But these people have the freedom to do illegal activities in public and not be arrested. That's how unbelievable this has gotten. So this guy goes on to say, the woman says she felt violated. Had I not been serving my country, I would have been in my home. The active duty officer was told by police they could not evict the guy and that the issue is considered a civil matter. I want to go shoot out the windows, turn off the water, cut wires, but I can't. That's a crime. Law-abiding citizens can't do that, according to the woman. Exactly. The 4,300 square foot sprawling home turned squat, boasts 5 bedrooms and 5 baths before listing the home The woman said she had been renting it out. She spent roughly $35,000 on renovations. But again, she can't throw the guy out. This guy's squatting in the home. So I've seen other stories out there about people squatting underneath people's decks and people calling the police and the police don't do anything about it. Right? And then look, I'm a believer in private justice because at this point, who trusts any of these people? But of course, if you take private justice, if a squatter is in your lawn, say you have a couple of kids and a wife and a family, and the guy's just squatting in your lawn, injecting himself with something, you should have the right to personally remove the person, however, by any means necessary, right? But you will go to jail for the rest of your life if you do that in this society. That's how insane this is. And why? Why is all this happening? Because you're going to have no private property. You have to put up with this. This is communism. So for anyone out there who's like, I see these absolutely mentally insane libs out there who post stuff and they're like, I'm a communist and this is why I'm a communist. And they're so dumb. They're like, oh, it just means that I'm a nice person. I care about, like, that's how stupid they are. Or equality because they've got shafted in life. When in reality, they've just, well, you see them sitting around playing video games all day and then they're like complaining about how much money they make or how much money they don't make and everyone else makes it because they're skin color. They're so dumb and brainwashed. It's incredible. It's like you're sitting around playing video games all day. How do you expect to make more money or have a better life than somebody else as far as, you know, where you live and all, living conditions, etc., when you just wake up and play Nintendo or play Xbox, whatever it is, right? And these people are promoting communism and they're like, oh, this is all great. And, you know, there's a reason our government or our military fought against this for so long, but now it's obviously all been taken over. It's all been infiltrated by the secret societies because this is their control mechanism, communism. But how do people look at this and say it's okay? I mean, eventually the squatter is going to be in the Dems' home. You're going to be all right waking up with the guy shooting up on your sofa? You know, these people put on a smiley face like, I support this, I support that, right? Until they start infringing on what? Your rights? Well, you won't have any rights because you're all busy giving up our rights to these insane people. So this is another story about how you'll own nothing and be happy. And this is just a case of private property not existing because that's a part of communist Marxism. So share this information so people out there know the horror ahead because we are getting very close to this just being officially the way it is and they'll just call it something else. They won't call it communism. They'll call it wokeism, right? Oh, a wokest America. They'll give it some, you know, just a new name. Just like the CIA changes names and the OSS, all these organizations change names. So people out there are like, oh, it's not that, it's this. It's great, like the Illuminati. Oh, they don't exist anymore. Oh, okay, because they told you they disbanded, right? Oh, yeah, they don't exist. Secret societies don't exist. This is the New World Order. This is what it looks like. So be prepared. I thank everyone for being here. Reminder, again, please sub to my other channels now if you haven't. This is the end of the video. So if you didn't pause and do it, please do it now. I appreciate it. Do that favor for me. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. God bless all of you and your families.